Welcome, welcome, welcome to the pod. You are listening to What the Reality with me, Cashay Roberts. I was about to say with me, What's the Reality? Because if you guys know, you can tell by the title, this is your What's the Reality on What the Reality. Because what is the reality? And in this day, I don't know where I was going with that. And today's topic is Porsha Guobadia, now Williams, and Simon Guobadia. It's Guobadia. Yes, I wanted to really get into this topic because Atlanta Housewives is about to go off, and this is a topic I've really wanted to dive deep into because it is something that just makes me think, we never ever really got the story. So, of course, I had to do my digging. I had to become a journalist, as Porsha would say. And I had to put on some hats. Thank you so much, Essence, Reddit, Bustle, some other people. Everything I used basically. Thanks so much because I found a lot of information on this topic. Since Porsha don't want to give us the real, we're gonna have to find the real for ourselves, and we're gonna have to do a deep dive as to what the heck happened. Did she know Falynn? Did Dennis know Simon? Did Shamia set them up, which is still kind of iffy, and I'm hoping we get more into it as the reunion is airing. But how the heck did Simon and Porsha get together? And that is exactly what we're talking about. It's going to be two parts. Your first part is going to be about like how they got together initially, while the second part is going to be all about the divorce, the aftermath, the trouble in La La Land, everything leading up to her season 13 return, and the rumors and nastiness that followed after she posted that. Porsha Williams coming back to Atlanta. No, Porsha Guobadia is coming back to Atlanta. You guys remember when she did that one? It was cute or whatever. But yes, we're gonna get right into it. This is your what's the reality on what the reality. So with that, no reality topics, no reality TV either. And we're just gonna dive right into it, of course, as we should. So yes, part one, I want to focus on the overview of the relationship, how they got together, who introduced them, like I said. And I want to talk about her inconsistencies. I also want to talk about Porsha's family values, and someone that's also going to be very much mentioned in this episode is going to be Falynn Pina, who is Simon's ex, and Jalen Banks, who is Falynn's on and off again man. I think they are on right now. Let's just dive right in. Let's just dive right in with what we have, because it would not be a what's the reality if we did not just dive right in. Of course, a deep dive on this situation. So starting off, we're gonna take it back. We're gonna take it back. We're gonna take it back, and we're gonna do timelines after this. But let's set the scene. So, of course, we know that Simon was married when him and Porsha initially met, and I will stay true to that. Regardless if him and Falynn were going through a difficult time or not, he was definitely married, because it seems as though Porsha met this man before Falynn introduced them. What do you guys think about that? I'm pretty sure she met him before she was even introduced. So just starting off with that, we first meet Simon. And who is Simon? Simon is this film producer. Simon is this entrepreneur, and he's also a CEO of a petroleum jelly company, Vaseline. So he's racking in a lot of money. I did some research on how much he is allegedly worth. Allegedly $40 million. So, and we know the nastiness and rumors of Porsha and her past being attracted to men with money. Cordell Stewart, her first husband, was an NFL star, former star. And then remember when she brought on some young guy who was also playing NFL? We're hearing rumblings about Future. And then Dennis, the hot dog king, which was really a shock for a lot of people. We're hearing that they apparently, Dennis got money. Porsha, if anything, she's just going to keep climbing the ladder. It's like, okay, it's like that Monique saying, like, if one man don't work, get another one. And that is Porsha. I also want to talk about how Porsha is in a dynamic with her mom, to just add it in as we set the scene. I feel like, and a lot of viewers feel like, Mama Diane has kind of set Porsha up in a way to really lead with her looks, to go get it with your looks. Doesn't matter who you got to screw over. You need to be putting your looks first. And I think she really encourages that male-centered behavior from that we see from Porsha. I think it's very much encouraged by Mama Diane. To even go back when Cordell was like, all your mom would do would like sit on the bed and eat pizza, like whenever she wanted her family over. And I don't like to talk about people's mamas, don't like to talk about people's children, but we see this habit of Porsha very much blaming other women, not really blaming herself. She doesn't really take accountability oftentimes. And she has this very like childlike spirit. Like, yes, Porsha is a good Kiki, but she strikes me as someone that never really learns from her lessons. And it's because she's always taught that her lessons are validated. And that starts with who raises you. That's your mother. And it just seems as though Mama Diane's like, it's never your fault. She's kind of built Porsha on, you're not the problem, it's everyone else. And that can be troublesome, especially as you're forming social relationships, friendships, and romantic relationships. Because when you're moving in life thinking it's the other person, it's never me, you kind of are creating a monster. And I think we are watching Porsha become this monster literally in reality TV. I know it's an extreme word to use, but it's kind of like we're seeing her kind of not really give an F about who she hurts in the process. I'm wondering if it's going to get a little too dark in here because I have these new curtains and it might get a little too dark. So yes, we do see that a lot from Porsha. Okay, we got some more lighting. So yes, that is who I would say Porsha is kind of at her core, and it's just like based on what her mom has taught her. I mean, it's not shocking, but it's like that's kind of what like strikes out the most to me about Porsha. And then of course, like with Simon, he's married to Falynn. Apparently, this is fourth marriage because we do learn on Porsha's Family Matters, which we're also going to get into, is that Porsha was either the fourth or the fifth. This is his fourth marriage. So we know Simon alone had 5 kids. And we know Falynn had 3 different baby daddies. She had 3 kids, 3 sons. So they were already in the midst of blending their family. That was a household of 8 children. It's a lot of kids. So yeah, that's kind of how we meet Simon. But like, who is this man? Why does he have all this money? Because of the petroleum company, film producer over there in Nigeria, and whatever money like that corresponds to all of that. That is where a lot of his money is coming from. So now we get Falynn, who I say is like literally drop dead gorgeous. Falynn Pina, who we know through Porsha on Real Housewives of Atlanta. She comes in showing off this mega mansion she lives in with Simon. Like I said, gorgeous woman, but 3 different baby daddies. And there are clearly some rumblings within that relationship because this was, what was this, season 10, a big state of contention, or like season 13, is LaToya. You guys remember LaToya forever from YouTube, was on that season. She kept poking fun at Falynn's relationship and how she's with this man. Also, I mean, where's LaToya at now? But also, where's Falynn? They had a huge age gap. Falynn also has a huge age gap with her current man. And if I'm not mistaken, Falynn is like 39 now. But let me double check because Simon is like he's like pretty old. Guobadia. Yeah, he's 61. And Porsha is 44. Falynn, what age is she? She might have just turned 40. It doesn't say how old she is. I think she was like 39. Either way, they were married for 3 years. So we're talking, that was 2019 through 2021. And Porsha, so we know how producers are messy. We know that. Producers are very messy. So we meet Falynn through Porsha, which is why when the news came out that Porsha and Simon were together, we were just like, isn't that your friend? Either way, you still gonna look at Porsha differently. But we get to know Falynn through Porsha, and I'll never forget the scene is when Porsha's pulling up to this huge house, and a lot of viewers pointed out how it was giving she already knew Simon. Like the way they greeted each other was kind of giving like, I know you, but let's not act like we know each other. So Porsha and Falynn, though, have maintained that they did not know each other, and I like to relate that back to Wendy from Real Housewives of Potomac, because remember when NECA was on and Nneka wanted Wendy to bring her on as her friend because they knew of each other. But Wendy was like, "You're not my friend." Wendy much rather and did bring on Kierna, her actual real friend. And a lot of people came for Wendy. They were like, "You just don't want to be. You want to be the only Nigerian on here." And you had a problem with Nneka coming on here when she's like, "No, I know of her, but that's not my friend." And I have a feeling it's like the same instance with Falynn and Porsha, because apparently Porsha knew Falynn through Dennis, but she like knew of Falynn. Also, Atlanta is very small, so everyone knows everyone. But apparently, Dennis and Simon were like cool and like business partners in something. And that's how Porsha allegedly knew Simon beforehand. But we're also hearing a story that Porsha knew Simon from going out to one of his restaurants. So I'm like, is he a owner of a petroleum company, or does he have restaurants and businesses like Kelly Chicken and Waffles? Like, it's very confusing. That's why I say it's important to note like the inconsistencies in Porsha's lies and truths, because they all come off just as lies at the end of the day. It's like, did you guys know each other? Like, we really wouldn't know a thing, because at one point you're saying you met her and Simon through Dennis. Another point you're saying is Shamia. Then another point we're seeing you meet for the first time on screen. And then there's like a whole other lie. So we don't really ever know how she really met Simon. But like I said, a lot of people, including myself, suspect she already knew Simon before we see them on camera together during season 13. So Porsha then, when meeting Simon, him and Falynn were already going through a tough time, like a difficult time. Like, I think she was trying to parade like this perfect life, but like there was already tension. And like I said, LaToya was bringing up like the age gap and the gold digging accusations, and how this was like she didn't get pregnant by Simon, but like she has 3 baby daddies. So that was also another storyline, because it's like, girl, how many baby daddies are you about to have? Well, now we know she has 4 because of her current man. So then we also learn after that, because then I'm going to get into timelines. We also learned that Falynn was pregnant during the time her and Simon were still together, because she announces a pregnancy August 2021. And like I said, we're about to get into timelines, but she announces a pregnancy August 2021, and her and Simon don't officially separate until July 2021, or the divorce isn't finalized until July 2021. And I think they officially like put the nail in the coffin February 2021, March 2021. She had her baby November 2021. Do the math. We're going to do the math. But I just wanted to throw those dates out of there. So like I said, let's keep up with Porsha's inconsistencies. So these are the stories thus far we've heard, and we're going to also explore as we get into what's the reality on Porsha and Simon Guobadia's relationship timeline, all of that stuff. We've heard Porsha say she met Simon through Dennis. That's inconsistent lie number 1. We've heard her now say, and this is a recent one that wasn't even going to be added to the notes, but I'm like, Atlanta's airing right now, and I just got this from the reunion. She's now saying Shamia is the one that introduced them, which totally was not on my bingo card, but we did do some digging. And well, I did do some digging, and now it's kind of like, is it giving Shamia also was like in on it? So that's lie number inconsistent. I'm gonna call it inconsistencies. So the inconsistency number 3 then is like Porsha and Simon met on the show, which we as viewers saw. But as you know, on a show, nothing's ever what it seems. It's all edited. And then, am I missing one? Yeah. So those are the 3 we've noticed. It's like the Shamia, the Dennis, the show. And then the 4th one, she's seen him out at the restaurants before, and that's how she knew him. And I'm assuming she was with Shamia during that time. So maybe that's where the Shamia one is coming from. I don't know. Let's start with the timelines from summer 2020. So Porsha and Simon meet. This is summer 2020. This is when Real Housewives of Atlanta is no, that's when they meet. And then obviously it aired like after summer 2020. So we see that play out. Keep in mind, Falynn and Simon were married 3 years, 2019 through 2021. So you would consider this still a very fresh relationship. They were in their 2nd year of marriage when Porsha and Simon meet, which is very important for optics. I think a lot of people thought Falynn and Simon were married longer, when in reality they just weren't. They weren't married that long. I mean, 3 years, but they were still married on their second year of marriage, but fairly new. You still getting to know that person. You're still blending families. Fairly new relationship. So then we're going to jump to January 2021. Simon files for divorce from Falynn, citing irreconcilable. I can never say this word. Irreconcilable differences, and it's irrelatively broken. The marriage was broken. There was no way of getting out of it. But what a lot of people don't know, he had that tossed out a week later. So he filed the divorce initially. Then they got back together. Definitely was together Valentine's Day. And then we get February 19th, 2021. He files for divorce again, citing the same stuff. So something happened between there where they're like, all right, let's work this out. March 2021, it's important to note, Falynn went on some podcast defending her relationship. Even though he had filed February 19th. Maybe that wasn't out in the blogs yet, but she was on a podcast in March. Like, hey, like, we're humans. We go through stuff just like normal people. Like, we're just trying to figure it out. Now we got April 2021. Falynn announces that her and Simon are divorcing. So I said in parentheses that she is pregnant at this time because she does have her baby November. So a baby got to bake for 9 months, 8 to 9 months at least. So I said she was definitely pregnant in April. And I'm wondering if she was pregnant in January because you're having your baby. She was definitely pregnant in February. Maybe she was waiting to see who was the father. But this is the gag. She was apparently pregnant by the help. And that's where we meet Jalen Banks. However, I'm very confused why they label him the help because he is labeled as an entrepreneur. I've heard pool boy. I don't know if he was doing work for them as he was trying to get up. I don't know if he was underneath Simon's wing as Simon is a businessman and Jalen Banks was trying to get up there because Jalen is a lot younger there. So Falynn and Jalen Banks' age gap in itself is 10 years. I think, like I said, she's 39 now. I think he might be 28 or something. But when all this broke, I think he was like 26 years old. We didn't know that yet. There were rumblings. So she does announce officially in April 2021 that her and Simon are divorcing. And like I said, she was definitely pregnant at that time with another man's baby, which is why the rumors were going so hard. Then we have May 2021. Porsha and Simon go IG official after dating for 1 month. So this is a lot happened in May. We didn't even know they were dating. And then the next day, so I think it was like May 10th, she posted that they were together. And then May 11th, he posted that they were engaged. So this was Porsha's statement regarding the whole Falynn of it all. She said, I know it's fast, but we are living life each day to its fullest. She insisted that her and Falynn are not friends and that Simon's divorce has been settled. She said, I chose happiness every morning and every night, tuning out the negative energy and only focus on positive wishes. He makes me so happy. And to me, this is what matters the most. She then defended their engagement. And like I said, this was a day later because we were like, so y'all have been dating for a month secretly. You've been dating since April. And then all of a sudden you're getting married, engaged. And that's what I'm saying. Like Porsha, for that, didn't click to her because her mom is always instilled in her, like, hey, you lead with your body, you lead with getting that bag. Okay. Because you know what they're saying now? They're saying that Porsha scammed the scammer. And they're saying kudos to her. But I'm saying it's a pattern of Porsha literally getting with these men very fast. Her and Dennis, they were trying to get married and stuff very fast. Like Porsha, at the end of the day, is going to try to get to the bag. I don't blame her, but it's just like, these are men that she doesn't have emotional and like intimate connections with. These are all solely based on her physicality. She's a gorgeous girl, but I'm just saying, like, there's no way within a month you form that type of connection unless you're the Countess, like Countess Luann or something. I don't know. It just sounded like some crazy stuff you don't see people really do. It seemed as though she was like, let me hop on this while he is divorcing this woman so I can secure that $40 million bag because his net worth is crazy. Now, I don't know what his net worth looking like now, given everything, but his net worth, crazy. 40 million, that's a lot of money. So Porsha then defended it and she said, for all of you that need the facts, and this is after they announced their engagement a day later, It was like a day or 2 days later. For all of you that need the facts, I get the optics, but Simon filed for divorce from a previous marriage in January. And you see how she didn't even say her name. She said I had nothing to do with their divorce filing. That's between the two of them. Falynn are not friends, and Simon's divorce has been settled. Our relationship is a positive, loving step forward in everybody's lives. So she says it has been settled. However, girl, Atlanta work fast. It don't work that fast. He filed in February. You talking about getting engaged. This is now May 2021. It was not official by that time, which is why it's like always bewildering to me. So then, like I said, Porsha has always claimed that her and Falynn were not friends, that production wanted her to bring her on the show. Do I genuinely believe that? Yes, I could see that 110%. It's like, hey, we think you may know this girl. Can you bring her on the show? Also may think you might get like a pay raise or something, like if the girl does well, it's like, it's like an incentive. Like when you bring on someone at your job and it's just kind of like, oh, if they last X amount of time, you get a little bonus, right? So maybe it was something that worked out that kind of was like that or whatever. So then my issue is that she's saying it was finalized in May 2021 and he handled all of that back in January, but they reconciled. And I think a lot of people don't know that. He took that back. He took that off. They were at least reconciled for at least a month before he then filed again February 19th, 2021. And Falynn, like I said, was defending their marriage to the blogs and on something, I think it was a podcast, but she was defending her relationship March 2021. So then the following day, Simon does announce that he did propose to Porsha. He's like, I asked her to marry me. This is quote unquote. I asked her to marry me because we checked all of each other's boxes and then some. Getting married again was never a question in my mind, but when? Did not expect to be blessed with a mate so soon. Mate, a lot was going on in May 2021. Fast forward to July 2021, we finally see Falynn took to social media to say her divorce has officially and legally been finalized. So what is Porsha talking about saying it was already finalized? Like he technically proposed to her while he was still legally married. Yeah. So the divorce, I think, moved pretty swiftly because she was already pregnant, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet. But like I said, a little background with Falynn, she does have 3 baby daddies from previous relationships. And they were 3 sons, and then Simon had 5. So they were functioning as a blended family. Simon and Falynn had no children together, which is another reason I suppose that moved very quickly. Like they're like, okay, you're both in love with different people. We can go ahead. Because normally in some states, you do have to remain separated for at least a year before you officially file for divorce. Like I think in California, like you have to separate for at least a year before you can officially be divorced. That's how it is in some places. I think Atlanta is kind of like you're clearly pregnant with someone else's child. You're clearly ready to propose to this new woman. I wonder how many times these, people are in charge of this stuff. Like I'm watching The Crown right now, and I just wonder how often, because back then in the UK or whatever, like there was actual hearings, like can this person literally get a divorce, or like should they work it out? And you would literally have to pitch yourself. And I just wonder like how many times like people that handle these divorces and stuff, they see this stuff and they're just like, oh, they're gonna get back together, or they're both bonkers, like let's just do it, let's just divorce them. Like I wonder how much of it is a judgment call, because everything is a judgment call either way. So that's a little info on Falynn. And the rumors are circulating that she is already pregnant by the help. Partially because Simon did say something. He did post something on his Instagram, and I literally cannot find what day he said this. She appeared on, it looks like the Real or something. It was something with a purple background. And of course, this screenshot is without a date. I found this on Reddit. And he was like, the face of a cheating wife. Let's start with why I filed for divorce. So it was her clearly saying her story. He said, let's start with who she cheated with and currently pregnant for and living in a home I paid for post-divorce. His Instagram handle is It's Jalen Banks. Let's get started there. So that's why those rumors were there. And then also, she doesn't look pregnant there. So that's why also the blogs are running with that. because they're like, wait a minute, they're saying she's pregnant, or Simon's saying she's pregnant. She cheated on him. So that's another reason they're alleging that they got divorced, is because of her cheating. But I'm pretty sure Simon was also not doing, I don't think he was a clean guy. He definitely was not a clean guy. So then we get around this time in summer 2021. So all of this is happening July 2021. They get engaged May 2021. We get the official announcement from Falynn July 2021. During this time, Porsha is working out a deal with Bravo to get her own reality show, a spinoff of Real Housewives of Atlanta, Porsha Family Matters. And this show is about blending her family, her already blended family. This show is about getting Dennis and Simon on proper terms. This is about getting her family on terms of the fact that it's like, she's literally about to be someone else's wife when everyone probably thought it was going to be Dennis. So that's already in production. Porsha moves very fast. This show is already filming, and this show would eventually premiere November 2021. 2021 was a huge year for Porsha Williams because she was just clearing. She was like, you know what? Life stops for no one. This is happening this month. This will be happening the next month. And she just carried on. So it was greenlit in May 2021, the new show, Porsha Family Matters, and it began filming in the summer. And it was a quick turnaround, very quick, because it aired November 2021. So, like I said, the series depicted Porsha attempting to blend her families together. And this series probably did worse for Porsha than it did any good. I think a lot of viewers, including myself, saw Porsha Williams in a whole different light. We did not like Porsha. We think Porsha was full of it. We saw her attack Dennis's mom. Like, they all like try to jump Dennis. His mom's trying to defend them. We see the real as to how Porsha and Simon fell in love because Porsha was consoling Simon about his divorce and slid into his DM and was like, hey, like, I hope you're doing good. Like, my condolences, which is beyond me because then they said the rest was history. And I don't know if it was him that brought it up. I think it was. It was like she slid in my DMs and was like checking in on me about my divorce with Falynn. Because the news with Falynn didn't hit until February 19th. So that literally means you probably slid in it. Like, probably, I'm giving her February 20th, February 21st. And then they were talking maybe since March. And then April. That's what I mean with the inconsistencies in their timeline. If he filed for divorce in February, when did you reach out? Because then were you guys talking since March, or were you talking since April and then you decide to get engaged May? That's why I'm like, it just shows how they're trying to keep up with like their lies and not expose them fully. You can tell Dennis is very uncomfortable. They went somewhere. This was like a very quick series, but I think it was like 6 episodes. And then Dennis was very uncomfortable, very shocked with the quick turnaround as well. Some of her family was as well, but like I said, her mom was not, because her mom has always like taught Porsha this. It's kind of like, get that bag, lead with your sexuality, and at the end of the day, it's everyone's fault, not yours. That's just a common thing we see. And then we also, like I said, get that epic blowout between Dennis and his family. And I very specifically remember that blowout of like her like jumping on Dennis, freaking out. We just noticed that Porsha really hasn't changed. After Porsha Family Matters goes off, Porsha does not renew her contract with Real Housewives of Atlanta, so she does not come back for season 14 or 15. Eventually, she comes back for season 16. And she doesn't want to face the music, mostly because of the backlash she received from Porsha Family Matters. People did not like the way she handled that situation. They thought it was a really bad look. I thought it was a really bad look. It made us not like Porsha. A lot of people were shocked. I was shocked. I did not know Porsha Williams was like that. And the whole gaslighting Dennis, very mean to him, very manipulating, trying to exclude him on certain excursions. It was very giving much high school. And it was giving, she kind of wanted Dennis to chase her. I still think at the end of the day, she loves Dennis, but I digress. But that did not show her in a good light. Like I said, she received a lot of backlash, and the whole brawl with the mom jumping in, like, it was just too much. So then she eventually returns for, of course, season 16. But let's get to August 2021. So while this is not airing yet, but August 2021, Falynn announces she is pregnant officially with Jalen Banks' baby. And this is 1 month after officially being divorced from Simon. And the thing is, she has a full belly, so it's kind of like, girl, you've been pregnant. But she even said in her statement, like, she knows that there's rumors out there, which is why she kind of wanted to clear this, and like they wanted to share it in their own way. But she knows there was rumors, and like I said, she had a full belly, so she was pregnant at least since February, when they were probably trying to reconcile. And like I said, she had her baby November 2021. So, and that also fuels the rumors again of like, well, were you cheating while you were with Simon? Is that why you guys broke up? Was he cheating? Is that why you guys broke up? It was just kind of like all over the place. It was just kind of like who was doing what. September 2021, Porsha and Simon traveled to Nigeria for their wedding preparations. Porsha's Family Matters has wrapped. I think it probably was such a quick turnaround for November, because I think they literally filmed for 2 weeks. This was like, I even think it was like a week trip. They didn't film for that long. That's why it was such a quick turnaround. So September 2021, Porsha and Simon traveled to Nigeria for the wedding preparations. I think it's also important to note they didn't have their wedding until a whole other year later. They were hoping to get married a lot sooner, and I'm going to get into that. But this is Porsha's first time visiting Nigeria. She's like, feels like home. Like she was just amazed by it. I remember seeing those pictures. I mean, she looked good. Different country, different experience. November 2021. Falynn and Jalen welcome their baby girls. So Falynn only has boys. So what it's amazing to finally have a girl. This is Jalen Banks' first kid. So now she has 4 different baby daddies, like I said. And then what are the odds during this time Porsha Family Matters premieres? 2021, crazy year. So while she is officially announced that she welcomed her daughter, Porsha Family Matters is airing. Viewers are kind of turning, Atlanta Housewives films like kind of springtime very soon, like Christmas time. I think they were still filming like end of the year, like beginning of the year, like winter until like spring and stuff. They obviously changed it. They change it like every season, or like they stay with it. Like I love New York's OG's original time, because it was like around holiday time, all of that stuff. Like it was always like into summer Hamptons into like holidays and stuff. But I think Atlanta's prime was like fallish, kind of, to maybe like spring. But I feel like they started slowly transitioning to like after holidays to spring, summer, because it would be hot. I mean, that's why Angela was carrying around the fan. It was getting hot. But fast forward a year later, so this is after November 2021, Porsha Family Matters is airing. Porsha announces she's not coming back to Real Housewives of Atlanta as well within that time. We got November 2022, nearly a year later. Porsha and Simon get married. This is November 26th and 27th. In Igbo, Nigerian culture, like you have to have a wedding there for it to officially count in Nigeria. And then they did a wedding in Atlanta. Y'all remember when those pictures came out? Porsha looked good. At the end of the day, she was like a princess in a fairy tale. The body was bodying. She looked amazing. The dresses, People Magazine did a cover on her. It was really good. And it was just exciting to see Porsha in this new relationship. It kind of almost made you forget how she got there. I didn't forget, but I think some people forgot. It kind of made you go like, okay, it'll work. I can't believe it was a span of like 2 days. I forget about that. And this is also the Nigeria wedding Well, no, I'm thinking of Shamia because Porsha didn't make it to hers. I wonder if Shamia made it to hers. A lot of people were at the Atlanta one. So I think it was a lot going on. She looked amazing. A lot of people don't know the wedding was held up because of the prenup. And Porsha talks about that now on this season. But they would have gotten married sooner if the prenup was ready. Why wasn't the prenup ready? Because Simon's refusal to really turn in his financial documents, his status, that's what's held up. So if you ask me, that is a red flag in themselves. Almost like Todd not wanting a prenup with Candy. You know Candy got all of this, but you think you're entitled to that because y'all be married. Porsha was going to be smart this second time around. You know, you're so in love, but she's like, let me make sure I'm protected. Because when Porsha was with Cordell, Porsha didn't have much. Now that Porsha has been on Real Housewives of Atlanta, she's part of the Bravo branding. She had Go Naked. She did not want Simon being entitled to any of that stuff. Even though she did leave Real Housewives of Atlanta, she was trying to cover her tracks. That's about the only applause she gets out of me. Either way, they were intending on getting married a lot sooner, but he was unable to provide information regarding his financial status, regarding his not legality, because we know that becomes a state of contention down the line, but he's not able to prove how much money he's making, which we eventually find out was 40 million. He wasn't trying to turn those documents over. And it's like, I wonder why. Did he not want her to see how much money he was actually making? Was he trying to pull one over? Like, it was just giving, like, if that was me getting married, I would just be kind of like, okay, why is this being held up? So the prenup process was very much drawn out. Eventually it gets signed. Eventually in November 2022, they are getting married. February 13th, and that leads me to February 13th, 2024. Yeah, fast forward because it seemed like they had a smooth sailing relationship. I remember even before February 13th, 2024, they were just in Miami on Lamborghini boats and like racing in the water. She posted about him often. She was living her soft life until February 13th, 2024. I guess she wanted to show that soft life. And then she posted that video. Porsha announces on Instagram. Porsha Williams coming back to Real Housewives of Atlanta? No. But Porsha Guobadia is coming to Real Housewives of Atlanta. I'll never forget, she was like in a yellow jumpsuit. You know, her filter, the filter queen. Her and Kenya love a filter. And that was her announcement that she was coming back. This was nearly 2 years since she's been off the show. People are like, the shows went downhill. Sweet 16, you could have expected Porsha and Kenya. Now that we know how that played out, man, have we been played to our faces. But this was going to be her big return, her showing off her life. Eventually, soon after that announcement, maybe a couple days, maybe a week. I got to get the dates right. That's for part 2. We learned that Porsha is filing for divorce because Simon was caught up in some past legal troubles. Which brings me to my thoughts. So we have the timeline. You guys have some context you probably didn't know. I want to talk about were Porsha and Falynn really ever friends? My complete answer, short and sweet, no. Does that change the fact that Porsha is a homewrecker? No, it does not. I do think she's still a homewrecker. I do think she was lingering around, waiting for a little birdie. Who was that little birdie? Shamia. To be like, you might want to hop on this. You might want to get on this because he's about to divorce his wife. I don't think Falynn and Porsha were ever friends. I think production knew that they possibly could know of each other. Two pretty girls, Atlanta, you guys are kind of similar in the same circles. Can you bring this girl on the show? I think Porsha probably knew of Falynn. I don't think they were friends. And I think she was like, you know what? Let me bring her on. And like I said, I will continue to relate that to Real Housewives of Potomac, Wendy and Nneka. Because Wendy still claims to this day she didn't know that Nneka girl. And I think Wendy knew Nneka more than Porsha knew Falynn. But Wendy and Nneka were never friends. So it's like Imagine like I meet someone down the street and someone saw that and I'm a reality star. They're like, oh, hey, like we're interested in having that person on. Can you bring them on? I'm gonna be like, no, but I can bring on this person. But what if it really is like, you know what? I don't mind because Porsha's not a hater also back then. I mean, that's subjective. But maybe she is like, you know what, Falynn, cool people, I can bring her on. So no, I do not think Falynn and Porsha were friends, and we have to stop with that narrative. Was Falynn pregnant when her and Simon were together? No. Was she pregnant during the divorce proceedings and them trying to work it out? Yes. And math states, literally look at this fact. She had her baby November 2021. That baby's in the oven at least until February. I even say January. When did she have the baby in November? You just like, I feel like February. February. But either way, she was still having an affair. Does that make it right? No. I still think Porsha is dead wrong. Still think Porsha is dead wrong, waiting around for that relationship to flop so she can hop on it. I still think she was wrong. But Falynn is also not innocent by far because you were also cheating. Y'all both were cheating. Y'all were both trying to get your get back. And the relationship failed. But it's also like that relationship was only 3 years of y'all's life, that marriage or whatever. We don't even know how Falynn and Simon got together. Like, how did they meet? Because someone, as Latoya would say, Falynn was a go digger. I don't know. So yeah. So that was the other point I wanted to make. And then I wanted to talk about when did, like Simon and Falynn actually reconcile. And I said February because he initially filed for divorce January 2021. Then he took that back literally like a week later. They were still together. And then he filed again February 19th. So they were together around then, which is why I always say Porsha's inconsistency is like they've been done since January. When it's like, girl, no, they're not. And I don't think a lot of people understand that as well. It's like they called it off and they were trying to reconcile at least. So I don't know. And then the other biggest like inconsistency and the other point to address is like, did Shamea set Porsha and Simon up? Did she know Simon? And I would also say yes, because if we're watching this reunion, which we're going to get more into part 2 to tie that kind of in, because I do want to watch the second part before I like do my notes for the final part of this. But we do see on Instagram, Porsha, when she officially got with like Simon, Shamea was like, oh my gosh, love you guys. Porsha responded, best matchmaker ever. A lot of people are like, was that to cover the tracks of like there being overlap or like you guys are getting to know each other when Falynn introduced you to? Do I think that happened? No. I think they already knew each other beforehand. But also remember, Gerald is also, Nigerian. I think Nigeria and Atlanta is very small. So like all the Nigerians probably do know of each other, especially if they're all successful. Shamea's husband works in HVAC. Simon's in petroleum. I just feel like the Nigerian world in Atlanta will probably be small and you probably would know about this person. So that's what I would genuinely think. Shamea has maintained, and she said it at the reunion, she was not there when they met. Did she know of him though and was like, hey, like a little birdie in the air, like I know this guy, like Gerald knows this guy, he's about to divorce, like maybe you should slide in DMs. And maybe Porsha's like, oh my gosh, like I already know this man, like let me reach out to him or whatever. I don't know, but they, at the end of the day, Shamea and Porsha are best friends, lying for each other. They're both liars and they're both getting caught up in their lies. We won't know for sure how Porsha and Simon met. I can tell you what though, the timelines are very shady. You're meeting him officially of summer 2020. You cannot tell me that whole time that you guys haven't talked again since he was going through his divorce. And then even the divorce, the filing don't make sense. He filed in January 2021, took it back, then filed again in February. Y'all don't start talking until April 2021. Then you're all of a sudden engaged May 2021. Like the turnarounds are crazy. That's why people to this day are like, Porsha, how did you get with that man? Did you take that man, in Mike Kelly's voice? Like, why did you take that lady's man? But also people forget Falynn is not so innocent here because she was allegedly having an affair with this young Jalen Banks, who I think was probably a prodigy of Simon, because it keeps saying the help, but I'm like, the pool boy, but he's an entrepreneur. Like Jalen is an entrepreneur. So was he a pool boy to kind of like pay off those expenses of like entrepreneurs, like expenses and everything? Like, was he doing that? Or was he working under Simon to kind of like, learn the entrepreneur world, and come up on the come up? Like, what was the real tea with that whole situation? All I know is you cannot deny it is messy. And the facts are the facts is that there's definitely some overlaps when it comes to Porsha and Simon, just like there's overlaps when it comes to Jalen and Falynn. Very unfortunate now because we see Porsha and Simon's relationship lasted the shortest amount of time when it came to Falynn and Simon. She was married 15 months. Porsha was to Simon. And then, like I said, part 2, we're really going to get into why they are divorcing, what happened within the February 13th, 2024 post. And I really think it was like March. It was like she files for divorce. And that's because all of his legal stuff was coming out. And she allegedly did not know. But even Shamia at this current reunion was like, I asked her about the legality of his finances because that was a lot of rumors back then. It was just kind of like, where is his money coming from? Is his money legit? Where does his money reside? And Porsha was like, she should have did her research and all this stuff. There's just so much more overlooked. So the next part, I really do want to get into the divorce, what she gained out of the divorce, like what the trade-off was, because you do know she left her role at Real Housewives of Atlanta to receive $40,000 a month from him. And I think in her head, she thought it was a fair trade-off when we also learned that she was making a good amount of money on Atlanta Housewives. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into his nasty social media posts, the back and forth. It's going to probably be a lot. And I don't know if it's going to be next week's part 2 or the following week. I definitely want to get it out, though, before my birthday. So I'm assuming probably next week. I'm just going to pump it out. So we're probably going to have it out next Thursday. Look forward to that. But that was your What's the Reality on Porsha and Simon Guobadia's relationship. What is the reality on that situation? On What the Reality with me, Cassia Roberts. Until the next time, I will see you guys soon.